right, so it's getting ever so close for the Springboks. I'm talking about the British and Irish Lions tour in July. Coach Jacques Nienaber and his director of coaching, Rassie Erasmus, are due to announce their 45-man squad next week. Now, has the quality of rugby locally been up to scratch to give the Lions a fair go? Not so sure. Let's chat about that with Liam Dalcom. He's Sunday Times senior sports writer. He joins us quickly via Zoom. Liam, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for making the time. Now, besides the usual suspects, what are some of the other names that we can see coming out of the 45-man squad next week?
I think we will largely see the usual suspects. The question was put to Rassie Erasmus and to Jacques Nienaber 2 days ago about the composition of that squad, whether they would go with the tried and tested that won the World Cup for South Africa 2 years ago, or is there an obligation to look ahead to the next World Cup and maybe blood some younger players in the series against the Lions, and of course the 2 tests preceding that against Georgia. And they were pretty emphatic, saying that the Lions series is an absolute must-win series, in that those tests come around every 12 years, once every 12 years. So there's huge emphasis on winning those test matches, and for that they will assemble, by and large, the tried and tested. We must also remember the Springboks haven't played since the last World Cup final. So in terms of performances in a Bok jersey, the most recent evidence that the Bok coaching group has is the World Cup final. So they'll pretty much go back to what they know, what they've tried, what they've tested. So expect the familiar names to be back.
Liam, so you've just mentioned that the Springboks haven't played since the World Cup. Talk to us then about their quality. Do you think their quality will be up to scratch to give the Lions, a bit of competition there, considering all the limitations that came with COVID-19?
The limitations obviously were, it's huge, but we must remember a large contingent of that Springbok squad, the one that won the World Cup, has been playing in Europe. I think the Bok World Cup squad had 6 players were based abroad at the time. Now another 8 players play in different leagues around the world. So most of those players have had a proper game time in the last year and the last 6 months. So they're pretty much up to scratch if you were to compare their game time with the game time that some of the tourists will have. Obviously, the South African leagues got going a little bit later, and I think there was concern maybe early in the year that in terms of intensity and quality that that we are lagging behind a little bit. But I think we've seen a big upward curve in the last month or so. I think from my interviews with Rassie Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber 2 days ago, they seem pretty upbeat, that they're quite happy with the standard that we've seen in the last month or two.
Liam, Noche, I've just talked about Noche, with his kneecap injury. Of course, he's been ruled out. How big of a loss is that to the Boks?
It's a big loss if you consider a guy like Dwayne Vermeulen would probably have started at number 8 for the Springboks, but I think a spot off the bench was certainly available for a guy like Noche, who's been playing out of his socks. He was at the Stormers before he moved to the Sharks. That move seemed to put a spring in his step, revitalize the career. Of course, he does have Springbok experience. He played under Alistair Coetzee, and at some point he got dropped, but he's revived his career in Durban and was pretty much, I think, a shoe-in for selection against Georgia and against the British and Irish Lions. Maybe not a starter necessarily, but somebody who would have been able to play a role, maybe come off the bench. He certainly has a skill set to come on and make a huge difference in the latter part of a test match. So in that sense, absolutely a big loss. And then also, if you look forward, a guy like Dwayne Vermeulen may not be around beyond the Lions series, and that number 8 jersey will certainly be up for grabs.
Liam, quickly before you go, how different is the British and Irish Lions tour going to be in terms of spectators, rather the restrictions thereof? During the past year, we've had very many players in different various sporting codes saying that it's quite different, when there aren't any fans at all, or when there are fans, but it's largely restricted. In terms of their spirit as well, I mean, this is quite a big deal. How different is the experience going to be?
I think hugely different, but also I think the players over the last year or so have had some experience of not playing with crowds. Obviously, I think most frontline or top-line players will tell you that they draw energy from the stands. From if there's a full house, whether the supporters are cheering for you or if they're jeering you somehow, that serves as motivation. So in that sense, it'll be very different for them, but they've had some experience, I suppose, over the last couple of months with playing, in empty stadiums. I suppose it also then comes down to the sense of self-motivation. So, if there's nobody on the terraces shouting for you, you must have that inner strength, that inner drive to put out a performance that is worthy of the jersey that you're wearing. So it certainly will be different. I mean, Lions Series is associated with large crowds, large contingents of tourists coming into your country. And in this case, obviously, we won't see that. There might just be a trickle. So it will be different, and I suppose when the first test comes around, even before the first test, it will be difficult to get used to, because when the Lions are in town, you usually see a lot of Englishmen, Irishmen, Welshmen, Scotsmen. So it will be very different.
Yeah, we're going to have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for making the time. I must say, I'm definitely looking forward to that squad announcement next week. That is Liam Dalcom. He's a senior sports writer at the Sunday Times. Let's quickly move